If she was not so angry with him and with herself, she would have laughed at how ridiculous he looked in her mother's apron tied around his waist. What's going on? Your mother is making good on her promise to make me fisherman's soup. He smiled at her like the afternoon did not happen, like he did not turn her world upside down with mirrors of emotions she was still reeling from. As she forgot to tell me I would be helping, I hope you enjoy your meal. She climbed the stairs leading to her room, meaning to stay there till he left. Then she would give her mother a piece of her mind concerning this ridiculous dream of hers where he was concerned. That dish goes here, she had her mother call to him. If only the tabloids and bloggers would see me now, he laughed. They will have contents for days. Star entered her room and resisted the urge to slam her door. Rather, she gently closed it and divested herself of her clothes. Just staring at the clothes made her remember all the naughty things he had promised he would do to her, all having chocolates in them. She sighed again and went to shower. After showering, she lay on her bed. Picking up her phone, she saw several missed calls from her mom and promptly ignored the incoming call and switched off her phone. Nothing she swore was going to bring her downstairs to sit with Stanley, pretending that he didn't accuse her of having feelings or having an affair with Joe. Then the slight knock on her door startled her. She forgot to lock her door. Her mother could be very persistent. Knowing her mother would probably open the door faster than she could lock it, she turned her back to the door pretending to sleep. I was asked to tell you dinner is ready. She was shocked when she heard Stanley's voice. Incensed, she sat up and completely forgot that she was only clad in a revealing lace. What are you doing here? Your mom. She cut him off. What are you doing in my house? I mean, it is really very strange you would stoop so low to come eat in a house where some slut lives. Some slut who, according to you, is sleeping with her friend's husband. I guess I deserve that. I never called you a slut. And I never said you were sleeping with him. Give me some credit. Chuck is my brother. There are some things we just don't do. I called him your ex, and I felt you were rattled by his presence and his affection. Thanks a lot. That makes me feel a lot better. Okay? Can we go down to dinner now? No. You are being manipulative. Coming here, to my house, and pretending that I could, stand here all night and watch you looking beautiful and angry in that lace but. And then she looked down and gasped and drew her duvet up to her neck. I know you are arrogant and conceited. Don't add perverted to the list. He laughed. I think that boat sailed long ago. Leave, Stanley. I am not hungry. Maybe not, but your mother spent better part of her evening preparing that meal, not just for me, but mostly for you. So you're not going to let an arrogant, conceited, and probably perverted man like me make her feel bad all night? You are coming to dinner, even if I have to carry you down. You wouldn't there. And I would enjoy every bit of the struggle, especially with what you are wearing. My mom is just downstairs. Don't think for 1 second she will not throw you out if she as much as hears one scream from me. You are right, but the only sound she would most likely hear would be that of pleasure. You won't have to struggle for long, wanting each other as much as we do. She gasped in shock, knowing he was being honest. He had the power to turn her body and soul into nothing but simmering passion. She could struggle, but they would end up in throes of passion if she allowed him to touch her. Standing there in front of her, she knew she was hanging on to anger to stop the other emotion warring inside her from winning. So what will it be, Summer? Turn around, and he did just that. She left the bed and walked to her closet and found a simple floral mini gown and wore it. Then she walked past him and opened the door. She heard him gasp at her attire. If she was being honest, she would accept that she wore the minigown to taunt him and seduce him all through dinner. And then maybe he would go home afterwards aching for her. Hello, dear. I was beginning to be worried. She gave her mom a tight-lipped smile and sat down directly opposite Stanley, but determined to ignore him all through the meal. Anne went ahead to ignore both her mom and Stanley. She was all too aware of their easy and jovial conversation. They talked about everything from their shared heritage of Ijaw origin. Her mom was half Ijaw, half Igbo, and her father was full Igbo. Stanley's heritage was half Ijaw, half Yoruba, and then she smiled inwardly. If they ever got married, their children's heritage would be too complicated and confusing. "How is the food, dear?" Stan looked up guiltily. She was behaving like a spoiled teenager. It wasn't entirely her mother's fault Stanley was here. She was the one who allowed her mother's meaningless words about him to get to her. She was the one who got drunk, the one who kissed him, and the one who went to his house in pretense of returning his t-shirt. If he was here, it was because she has pursued and encouraged him. "Are you alright, dear?" She could feel the concern in her mom's voice. "I am fine." She smiled at her to stop her from worrying. "I had a long day at work," she added. "Maybe I'll give you one of those massages later." "Oh wow, you are not getting one," Star said too quickly and realized her error. "I did not ask for one," he smiled at her. "Just expressing how lucky you are. My mom never tended to a bruised knee. I am sorry about your mom's negligence, but she is a great and smart businesswoman. Those are things I cannot boast of. We all have our strengths and our weaknesses. I would have preferred that she was a good mother than a smart businesswoman, but you are right. Some of who she is the reason I am who I am today." Star heaved a sigh, not knowing what to say. She knew she would never trade her mother for Boss Ajibola with all her money and intelligence. Her mother was the purest of all souls, and she was also very smart. Just because she was not controlling billions did not mean she was not as every bit as smart as Bosse. "You are the smartest person I know, Mom." She smiled for the first time since she sat to dinner. "I know how much I have benefited from your wise counsel, both financially and otherwise." Her mom reached out to her, and they clasped their hands together in pure affection. Stanley watched with a touch of envy and longing. He was a grown man. He shrugged his shoulders. He shouldn't still be longing for his mother's affection. His mates were parents of their own. The only thing he could hope to do was correct the mistakes his mother made with him, with the way he would treat his own children, and it would begin with the woman he would choose to be their mother. Then he looked at Star again, and somehow he knew. No human being who grew up with so much love and affection would deny her own children same. Then he concluded he never really knew Star. He had always seen her as a workaholic who would sacrifice all for her career, for the thrill of another merger, another takeover. He looked at her, really looked at her, and saw the beautiful feelings and bond she shared with her mom, and he somehow wondered what it would feel like to be the recipient of such powerful feelings, and he wished, no, he needed her to look at him that same way. "You've grown very quiet. Are you alright?" "Yes," he smiled at her, and watched as she got up to start clearing the table. Only then did he realize the meal was over, and he quickly got to his feet. "Oh no, you don't do that. You cooked, so Summer and I would clean." Star stared at him sharply. Did he just say clean? Stanley, he knew, was not in the least way domesticated, didn't know the first thing about cooking or cleaning. So when he said they would clean, what he actually meant was she would do the cleaning. Star smiled inwardly. He had another thing coming. If he thought that was what was going to happen. Sweet vengeance, she thought, smiling, and got to her feet. "Are you sure?" she heard her mom ask. "Of course, Mom," she assured her. "You just go right on to bed. You will meet a perfectly clean kitchen by morning." She smiled at her. As soon as her mom left, she turned to him. "Why do I feel unsafe and threatened all of a sudden?" She smiled and began to stack up some of the dishes, bring the rest to the kitchen. she said to him and left without a backwards glance. Star stood before the sink and began to wash the dishes. After washing for a while, she realized that he hadn't come in. She stopped and wiped her hands and went back to the living room to look for him. And she found him sitting on the couch, talking to someone on the phone. She walked straight to him and stood in front of him, hands folded. He looked up and gestured with his hands to ask her what's up. She frowned at him. "I'll call you back, Harry." "What now?" She was too angry to verbally remind him of the promise he made to her mom. Rather, she pointed to the kitchen. "You are not serious, are you?" "This way, mister," she said firmly and began to walk back to the kitchen. "I will be more of a disaster. You will end up redoing everything I do." "You are a fast learner and I'm a good teacher." He chuckled and followed her to the kitchen. As soon as he entered, she turned to him. "I wash, you rinse, and dry and arrange them on that plate rack." "Ah, come on. You only wash and I get to do all that?" She smiled at him. "I got here first. That's what you get for dilly-dallying." "How come you don't have a dishwasher like all sensible modern women do?" "No point, when it's just me and my mom, and most times only her." "Roll up your sleeves and dig in." He did just that and grimaced as he dipped his hands into the water and began rinsing. "I am sorry," he said to her quietly. She gasped and paused for a moment. I have been. Let's just say I hardly trust women around Chuck." "Chuck would never." "I trust Chuck completely, but it's the women I don't trust. I don't trust them to behave themselves around him." "I know I'm being silly, but yes, I was between jealous and suspicious when you held on to him for a second or two. Chuck is my friend, our friend, and at that moment I needed his compassion. Like I said, I'm sorry." He smiled at her and leaned closer. Reflectively, she put out her hands to stop him from coming closer and watched with horror as a yellow oily water from her hands began to spread on his designer white shirt. "Oh my goodness, I'm sorry," she said and brought down her hands. He smiled mischievously at her. "Now, who's going to pay for that?" "I will launder it and bring it back to you good as new." "I don't think there's a remedy for that stain, and even if there is, you don't expect me to go home shirtless?" "All right, I'll buy you a new one," she backed at him. "Or you can pay in kind. A kiss or two, and your debt will be paid fully." He leaned in on her closer. "Stop," she said, this time making sure she didn't stain him again. He stopped when he heard the seriousness in her voice. "We have to stop this. We have toyed with each other long enough, and if we don't stop, one of us is going to get hurt." "The person most likely to get hurt is me," she added silently. "You think I'm toying with you?" He resumed rinsing. "Are you not?" He heaved a sigh and turned to face her. "If you were any other woman, I would say this to you. A little toying can't hurt two consenting adults. But the last time I checked, I don't visit the homes of women I toy with, cook with their mom, eat dinner with the family, or reduce myself to doing their dishes," he said a little angrily. He did not know who he was angry with, himself or her, because she was right. He had just realized he was acting out of character. What was he doing in her house? Cooking for her, eating with her, and doing dishes. Then what are you doing here with me? I need to know. He heaved another sigh. "I don't know, and that is the honest truth." "Not good enough." She turned back to her dishes. "What do you want me to say? Vow eternal love to you? How dare you?" Still holding the plate she was washing. "The truth is, I am suddenly attracted to you in ways I have never imagined before. I notice you in ways I have never done before, and you are constantly in my thoughts, in ways you shouldn't be. Is that love? I don't know." They both stared at each other, chest heaving. "But this I know," he said a little more calmly, like a sea about to erupt. "I want to be close to you. I want to see you all the time. I have thought of nothing since you left my house but to kiss you, to make love to you." She stared at him wide-eyed, trying to make sense of what he was saying. But so engrossed was she in his words that this time when he swooped in and took her lips in a heart-wrenching kiss, she did not protest. The plate she was holding between them was about to slip to the floor and shatter, but she did not care. She wanted to lean in, to feel his hard body against hers. The plate slipped and shattered into a million pieces. Even that did not break the kiss or his hold on her, but he lifted her off the danger spot and carried her to safety, away from the glass shards, and placed her on the counter. "I can't get enough of you," he whispered to her, and broke the kiss. "I am not toying with you. I don't know what I'm doing with you either, but I am not backing away from it. And if one of us gets hot, then we would know we gave it our best shot. Are we dating then?"
In the still of the night, I think of you. My heart beats with every thought of you. You're the one I can't let go. In your arms I find my home, love, sweet love.